on the issue of regulations and regulatory reform. In August, some of you may have received this letter, excuse me. In August, we announced an initiative called the One More Job Initiative. This initiative has actually started in the 4th Congressional District, and it's actually spread across the country. Members of Congress in Oregon and Illinois have now done the same initiative, and in fact, it was just done last week or 2 weeks ago by Mike Kaufman, asking some very simple questions to the businesses and the men and women who work in the 4th Congressional District. We know that this country faces 8% unemployment, above 8% unemployment. It's been 35 months in a row that our nation's unemployment rates have exceeded 35%. Excuse me, 35 months in a row that our unemployment has exceeded 8%. We've got a lot of work to be done to make sure that we are lowering that unemployment rate so that we can put people back to work. So the One More Job Initiative sent letters out to businesses, chambers of commerce around the district asking this: what is it that we can do to make sure that we are getting government out of the way to allow businesses to do what they do best, and that's to succeed? Is there a regulatory reform that we need to make? Is there a tax reform that we need to make? What suggestions do you have that we can implement to make a difference and get people back to work? There are 600,000 businesses in this state. If just 10% of those 600,000 businesses hired one person, it'd be 60,000 jobs. But we know those businesses are only going to hire if the economy is growing again and they're able to do it because they're successful. So we asked for that feedback. We created an email. If you have an idea or a suggestion, please give us an email at onemorejob@mail.house.gov. Let us know what's on your mind. We got great feedback. We forwarded some of the suggestions that we got to the President. Asked him to consider those comments that we received before he gave his speech on his jobs initiatives, the joint session of Congress in September. Just last week, we visited a business here in town, in Longmont. A business that sent us an email on the One More Job Initiative saying that because of one of the regulations that resulted out of a financial bill that passed Congress 2 years ago, the Dodd-Frank bill, that they can't finance a certain product that they had been selling. And it's gravely and seriously impacted his business. And so we've been learning a lot about what's happening and what we can do to improve the economy from these suggestions. You know, the 4th Congressional District, as it stands right now, out of the 435 districts in Congress, according to the Ag Census, the Ag statistics that they put out and publish every 5 years. The last census was done in about 2007, so a new one should be coming out this year. The 4th Congressional District is the 11th largest agricultural district out of the 435 members of Congress. So we've got a lot of great agricultural opportunities in this district. And so some of the things that we've been doing have been to help our rural areas benefit and grow even stronger. Last year we passed 3 free trade agreements. I have to slow down when I say that because that's kind of a tongue twister if you say it too fast. 3 free trade agreements. So we passed 3 free trade agreements. One dealing with Korea, dealing with Panama, and dealing with Colombia. And sometimes you wonder when somebody says, hey, if you pass these things, if you enact this legislation, then it's going to really help the economy. And you know, you wonder after it happens, okay, are we able to measure that? Are we able to know that? Well, guess what? When we went and visited a UPS facility in Loveland, Colorado last week, a UPS facility, they actually said their business has increased 20% as a result of the passage of these 3 free trade agreements. The opportunities it presents for Colorado wheat growers, the opportunities it presents for Colorado beef growers are truly phenomenal. And what it means for things like our other manufacturing and commerce industries are truly significant. So we've also been working a lot on the aerospace side of things. Did you know that Colorado has the 2nd highest number of aerospace jobs in the country, next only to California? I think there's a lot of people who don't even realize that we have a tremendous presence in aerospace. But right here in Boulder County, things like Digital Globe, things like Ball Aerospace, we have tremendous opportunities to grow our aerospace presence in Colorado. The governor has requested that Front Range Airport be designated or denoted a spaceport authority. I think what they want to do there is try to take off ships that will go into orbit, that land and take off just like a regular airplane. They want to do that out of Front Range Airport. And so we sent a letter to the governor asking how we can work together and what we can do to promote Colorado's presence in aerospace and work with companies like Digital Globe right here in Longmont and make sure that we are taking advantage of the ACE facility in Loveland that has now changed names, but the ACE facility that will actually do what we can to create jobs in aerospace and love. You know, they say that as many as 10,000 jobs could be created through that facility, working with the private sector to create jobs. Now, that's going to benefit Longmont too. And so the opportunities that we have throughout a region to increase and bolster our presence in the aerospace industry. These are only going to be sustainable if we can address our economy, the budget and the deficit situation that we face. I mentioned before that we do have serious challenges when it comes to our spending. We're spending nearly 44 cents of every dollar with borrowed money. We've seen deficits as high as $1.5 trillion in the recent past, in the past few years. And when you look at how much money we're spending overall, you can see mandatory spending here, you can see discretionary spending here. If you add up the discretionary spending totals, the deficits are even greater than the total amount of money we're spending in discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is like education, things like commerce, defense spending. We're spending more, we're actually going into deficit to a greater degree than the entire amount of our discretionary spending. And if we're going to create these kinds of jobs that get us to the future, that give the next generation even greater opportunities in this country, then we have got to do everything we can to get this spending and deficit and debt situation under control. That's why I supported the balanced budget amendment. Now, that must be your phone if you're shaking your head. Oh, okay. We started the last meeting. We had our last meeting in Berthoud, and we had the sound system rigged up, and the phone started ringing through the sound system as we started it, and it was we had it at Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District's headquarters, and it was their phone that was ringing, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have this fun time period as we answer everybody's phone call through our sound system at the town meeting. So anyway, those are the kinds of things that we need to be focusing on, how we get this debt deficit under control, using things like a balanced budget amendment, reducing spending for the sake of future generations. Because this amount here, net interest, $202 billion a year that we're paying in interest payments. What happens when those rates normalize? What happens if interest rates go up? And the amount of money that will be added to that interest payment, making it more and more difficult for businesses to borrow money, to expand, making it more and more difficult for businesses to meet their tax load, because taxes will increase as a result of increased interest payments and debt load. A lot of work to be done. And that's why I supported efforts last year to reduce spending. In fact, we've reduced spending to the levels at the end of 2008, discretionary spending. We have reduced spending. We will continue to, but we've got to do more. This upcoming year, the first part of the year will be dedicated and geared toward working on a solution on the payroll tax holiday. The doc fix, which deals with Medicare reimbursement, those expire at the end of February. We'll also be considering legislation that I'm going to be working on, including issues on rural health care, a bill that will try to address some of the concerns that I have with escalating tensions in Iran when it comes to energy productions, energy supplies in the United States, and a bill that I think could do a great deal to help us with renewable energy when it comes to work and access of renewable energy on our federal lands, making sure that we have a process in place that is easier than what it is to go through right now when we're dealing with renewable energy on federal lands. So those are some of the things and issues that we'll be working on. Mike, is there anything that I have missed that I didn't address here today that I need to? I want to introduce two people to you real quickly. Mike Bennett is my district director. Please, if you haven't met Mike, give him an opportunity. Mike is located out of Fort Collins, but you've seen him, I'm sure, quite a bit at different meetings in Longmont and Boulder County. And Dan Betts. Dan is also somebody that you'll see frequently in Longmont. Dan is also with the office. So if you don't get a chance to do much else before you leave, make sure you get a chance to say hi to them and give them your email address and sign up so that we can keep in contact with you. And if you do have an issue that you'd like to speak with the office about, make sure that you're contacting one of those two. And so with that, I would just love to turn it over to questions. Yes?
So last year I had the opportunity to go to the Simpson Bowls meeting, which was held in downtown Denver, where both of the gentlemen who were on the committee were there. And it happened to be that weekend in which you were all held over, so Udall and Bennett couldn't make it, so they were on teleprompter. But Gary Hart also attended, and it was quite eye-opening And I'm wondering, when we have these experts, and every economist I've ever heard, I don't care if they're liberal or conservative, has said that we are going to go into a dollar crisis and potentially an economic crash if we don't get more serious than what has been trimmed around the edges by Congress. And Simpson Bowles had a plan that seemed like both sides of the aisle were in agreement that this had to be done. What's going on in Washington that people are not waking up to this?
Yeah, it's when you look at how much we're spending, and people talk about cutting $1.2 trillion over 10 years.
Yeah,
Well, the deficit last year was $1.5 trillion, and they're going to cut spending over 10 years by 1.2. A lot more work has to be done. That's why I strongly support a balanced budget amendment. You specifically asked about the Simpson Bowles. I think there are things in that actually should be looked at by Congress. I'm concerned about tax increases, though. I don't support tax increases because I think our problem will not be made easier if we simply increase taxes but don't do anything on the spending side. I believe the way that we get ourselves back to a balanced budget, the way we get ourselves to a healthy economy and a situation where we have a long-term stable debt deficit outlook is by growing the economy, is by growing the opportunity for businesses to expand. That results in more revenue to the federal government. And then we reduce spending, we balance the budget, put things in place that cap how much money Congress can spend.
So why do you think people don't see that in Washington?
It
seems so
yeah.
clear to all of the rest of us,
Yeah.
and yet the people in Washington, in that capital, don't seem to get it. What's going on? Why can't the two sides?
Yeah, and it is clear that the people in this room, the people who replied to our One More Job initiative, the responses we got there, the people that this is our 58th town meeting? 59th, town meeting that we have held. And the ideas that we get are absolutely incredible from how to reduce spending. January 24th. January 24th is the State of the Union, but it also marks the 1,000th day since the United States Senate has passed a budget. It's been 1,000 days. And, they built the Pentagon in 1 year. I think how many, so if you can build the Pentagon in a year, the largest office building in the country, how do they just skip doing one of the most basic functions of government? Can you imagine with your household? Not figuring out how much money you were going to need by month by month. Yes?
Cory, I understand that President Obama has requested another 1.2, if I'm not mistaken, $1.2 trillion to add to the deficit, which would take us up over 16. What can we do to either prevent that or to make sure that there are other mechanisms in place that will help us to move away from that kind of spending? How can we keep accountability on that so we know where it's going? Somebody can be responsible for letting us know how they're going to spend it.
Yeah, well, I will vote to disapprove the additional $1.2 trillion in deficit spending. But how do we stop that from happening in the first place? We've got to have better control over the areas of spending that we do. That means you pass things like a balanced budget amendment. 49 states have a balanced budget amendment. Colorado has a balanced budget. Congress does not. That's why I think it's absolutely imperative that we pass a balanced budget amendment.